The better the brake, the faster you can drive. India has now become a terrific back office. Can you make talent in India? There is risk of AI and there is risk in AI. Good risk management is going to make the company grow faster.
Hello everyone, welcome to Beyond the Screen, a podcast series by Thornton Bharat, where we look to decipher innovations, ideas, and challenges that media and entertainment industry along with AVGC are facing today. Our guest today is Mr. Subhashish Nath, somebody I greatly look up to. He has 33 years of experience working across consulting, entrepreneurship, and academia. He is currently the founder and dean of Global Risk Management Institute, wherein he's trying to train students to understand the risk language. In his previous roles, he's founded Axis Risk Consulting, an India for Globe model, which was later on sold to Genpact, and he continued to be the service line leader for it. Thank you, Subhashish, for joining us.
Thank you so much.
So, sir, my first question to you would be, how do you look at today's risk landscape, given that there's so much happening geopolitically, AI, cybersecurity? What do you think is driving the change management? Is it lack of talent or is it the pressure of governance?
Thanks, Ananay. I think it's actually a combination of all of it. And if you really think of it, what's changed? What's changed fundamentally is the economics world has shrunk. Right. So it's fundamentally far more boundaryless, right? The pace of tech disruption is way faster.
Right.
It's always been there, it's way faster. Along the way, I don't believe that there has been enough done to well and truly, firstly, upskill leadership.
Okay.
In my view, and I can say that confidently, having met enough and more, there are independent directors on boards who don't understand what is risk. For them, risk is still about, it's someone's job to say what can go wrong, and that person's essentially trying to slow down a business.
Right.
Very different from being able to recognize that good risk management is actually about faster, bolder, better informed decision making. You get your guardrails around you, you take quicker decisions.
Right.
And who can be a good leader who can't take fast decisions? Now, trickle it down further, it's lack of talent at the grassroots level. I'm a risk professional, you are one, but we've all learned it on the job. Right? We could possibly do it learning on the job when life is much simpler. In today's complex, interconnected world, you need specialized skills. I think that's really where it's hurting, that you don't have that skill, you don't have adequate appreciation of the need for that skill. And clearly, the industry academia convergence that needs to happen around this is far from where it needs to be.
Yeah.
So that's really my view on that.
Yeah, and I think it's important and interesting that you've picked up two separate topics. One is around the fact that cost of control, as we call it, are we able to, as leaders, tell the people that it's not important that when you're growing, the controls are critical for the organization, and it's not to slow you down, but it's also to channelize your growth. And the other important aspect that you've picked up is around, while we call it, people are technically qualified, but they're not industry ready. So I think let's try and pick both of them separately.
Sure.
So on the the challenge of is controls slowing down your growth. What is it that you would like to tell leaders that, do you think that the controls? Yeah.
So I think there are 2-3 parts to this response. The first standard analogy that I use always is, I love driving cars fast.
Right.
And the reason one can drive fast is because cars have good brakes.
Correct.
Right? The better the brake, the faster you can drive. Now, essentially think about a good risk management framework as being that brake that gives you the confidence. It doesn't slow you down. It gives you the confidence to drive faster. So as a leader, it gives you the confidence to take much faster decisions, knowing that you've got very, very well-structured guardrails around you, and red flags will come up the minute you deviate from your sort of accepted tolerance of risk. So if you have defined tolerance well, and you've got these guardrails in place, you take faster, bolder decisions, as I repeat that. And that is fundamentally what I sort of talk to when I sort of interact with independent directors, board members, risk management committees. My constant pitch to them is, please recognize that how many instances do you have internally when you feel that you aren't taking decisions fast enough? And it's not because people don't want to take fast decisions. It's because they don't have enough information. They don't know what's the quantified effect if something went wrong. And is that within their tolerance? If all of that was known to them, which leader would like to kind of procrastinate over a decision? Nobody, right? Yeah. So I think fundamentally that's the point that people don't recognize, that you as a leader will always be far more effective if you knew how much risk can you take.
Yeah. So when you thought about Axis Risk Consulting, which was India for Globe model, they were still, the GCCs weren't coming up at the speed that they are now. I was with a CFO of one of the largest production studios in the world, and they've set up their GCC in Hyderabad now. And the biggest challenge that they felt was lack of talent. So how do you at GRMI now look to bridge that gap? And do you think that the gap has widened when you started Axis around talent, or is it still the same?
So if you ask me ask for a very honest answer, I'll tell you it's very unfortunate what's happened. And here's what has happened. What's happened is India has now become a terrific back office, even in specialized areas.
Okay.
So, all the consulting firms and everyone else, they've gone all set up their India offices. So again, no names taken, but everyone's got an India office. Most of these India offices are therefore being used to do what I call clerical part of the risk work. So because we have more numbers, are very happy saying, oh yeah, we've got employment going, people are happy, they're making good money. But what you're not realizing is that you're still not doing the real risk work. We still do not expose our people to end-to-end visibility, which is what was the beauty of small firms earlier. I still remember early days, a team of internal audit meant one person or two people.
Yeah.
People thought we were a small firm and hence we were doing that. What they didn't realize that it was very much by design. It made those two people understand the client's business entirely. Yeah. That I don't think happens even today in most of the firms.
And honestly, while I completely agree with what you've said, and that's a challenge that we face today and we are seeing it today. My question to you is, how do you think GRMI and the institutes alike are looking to solve for this problem? Because the problem exists, the problem's real. Right. While it's all hunky-dory to say that we should be taking up front office roles more, I think somewhere our education system has also let us down in the fact that we've not evolved in the speed or at the speed that the world and the technology was evolving.
Yeah. So I think there's a very fundamental reason for it. The very fundamental reason is, and I'll tell you what the solution also is, the fundamental reason is that specialized institutes do not get recognized by the approving bodies of the country. So institutes like us, we will not get approved by the AICTs and UGCs of the world. And the reasons are very, very sort of old school, because we don't have X number of PhDs. Well, you don't have PhDs in risk.
Right.
Or we don't have a campus, right? I don't need a campus to teach people, right? And unfortunately, the body which is meant to approve us and who have approved us is called MEPSC, Management Entrepreneurship Professional Skill Council. Now, the country views skills as being electricians, plumbers, carpenters. They don't even associate risk management with a skill as being a skill, right? So therefore, there lies the problem, which is it's not just the education system. It's our regulators who approve, who've still got a long way to go. It's progressing. Hopefully, HECI will solve for part of the problem. But what institutes like us are very aggressively doing, therefore, is working back with consulting firms, working back with risk leaders and saying, please start inducting trained professionals from specialized schools like ours. And we are seeing success. We've seen people get to director roles in about 7 years, right? So it's possible. However, again, the problem is, are enough people doing it? Because if you don't have this at scale, it's we're just too large a country for anyone to have an impact individually.
Right.
And that is where, again, we formed a body. It's a body of similar type of schools. And what we are trying to do is work back with the regulator, try and get faster approvals for schools like us. And there's a long way to go. We recently did an event, which you all also are part of, which was the RIAC, the Reimagining Industry Academia Convergence. And I called it that it's a movement, it's not an event. And the movement's going to take, I think, at least 3 to 5 years before we see any tangible result.
And just to your point of the movement that you called, but are you looking to collaborate with, so government set up IICT, at least in media sector, which is, they've invested 200 odd crores. They're trying to train talent. The vision of Prime Minister is that he doesn't want India to play games anymore. He wants India to create games now. So how are you looking at collaborating with, and tying back to the vision that the Prime Minister has seen?
No, that's a great point you make, Ananay, because there are 2-3 key stakeholders in this whole process, right? One is the educator, which is the institutes, which is us, right? Second is the fact that this whole concept of made in India, unfortunately, it's not yet translated itself into the world of talent. Can you make talent in India? Right. Is not being talked about even by the government. And which is what I'm trying to sort of get through to sort of corridors that matter, to say that if the day we have an agenda saying make talent in India, that is when we will be the real game changer. We were the tech providers to the world.
Right.
I believe we can be the talent providers to the world for a gazillion more areas. Risk is just one. I'm absolutely confident that we can have, like in your sector of media and gaming, you can have production houses, we can take on anybody.
Yeah.
We can similarly have, training schools for hospitality. We are a country which is known for warmth, right? Yeah. Why can't we have hospitality specialists who could basically run the whole hospitality show anywhere in the world, right? Yes, there is an element of local cultural nuance, but that can be imbibed. So I think what we are trying to do is figure out how we, the educators, try and get this to become a Make in India talent proposition.
And I mean, if we can now shift focus to the other big component of the change, the technology aspect of it, with AI coming in. If you look at some sectors that, there is mass layoffs that are going on, whereas in others, what we're talking right now is that, there is more that we can do and there is a lot of hiring capabilities and capacities. You've picked up on a couple of sectors in media, hospitality. So how do you look at technology being the driver and the change that we need?
So I think what I say is there is risk of AI and there is risk in AI. So risk of AI is what I think a lot of us have spent time on, which is saying it's driving sort of employment down. But what it's simply doing is it's removing repetitive tasks. Right. It's stuff that can be easily programmed, right? If we get our talent and the sectors to leverage that and then build their growth on it, there is huge opportunity, but there is a problem with that. The problem is that people aren't yet recognizing the risk in AI.
Okay.
Because when things go, as we all know, when things go wrong in technology, they go wrong at scale, at speed.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
With AI, it will happen at speed, at scale, with it almost being a black box for some time.
Yeah.
That is the problem. So I was talking to someone who's building a GRC tool, for example. And I said, you build this tool, you understand what happens. Now, when you expect a customer of yours to deploy this, she or he is just going to do it on good faith because they don't know what's the algo that you've put behind. Supposedly, you're going to perform audit checks. It's actually an audit GRC tool. You do audit checks and one is to believe that it's worked well, right? So I think to your point, the way industry needs to think about it is they've got to be very cautious about what can go wrong. And I don't know, I'm sure you will pick this up. We have to also recognize that AI was not meant to replace front-end roles.
Correct.
Right?
Absolutely.
There's an MIT publication which says $30 billion have been invested by large companies with zero return on investment. Yeah. Because those were investments made on front-end. Front-end is for business leaders and functional leaders and experts to drive. You meant to leverage technology. Problem also is, how are we training our people how to leverage technology? Like at our institute, we already started teaching AI as part of the curriculum, both how to use it and the risk in AI. Generations that are constrained by lack of desire for knowledge and ability to discern news from knowledge, we have a seriously big problem coming our way.
And while I subscribe to your views, I think one of the bigger challenges that I see is innovation. I think people, if they're too dependent on AI and the answers that AI gives you, AI can be a good factor to tell you what has worked historically in the past, right? But AI will or may not be able to predict what innovation will get you, and that is where I think there's this debate around talent versus tech, capability versus innovation. I think all of these debates will get answered.
Absolutely.
So yeah, interesting point. So moving on, Subhashish. So you've, like I said when I was introducing you, you moved from consulting to entrepreneurship to now academia. What is it that drives you towards academia, and what is it that you want to drive today?
So I think that's a very, very personal question at one level, right? Because there's no doubt it wasn't easy giving up a really sort of neat credit in the bank end of every month. Yeah. The charm of globetrotting. Everyone thought that, my life was brilliant because it was always in different cities and all of that. And most importantly, while in consulting, we always said that we make an impact. I think the impact, when you make it in lives of individuals, no matter it be just 375 professions as of now, hopefully, it's a matter of time before it's in thousands. I think that's impact in the real sense.
Yeah. And no, just to add to it, I think personally as well, I mean, from industry perspective, when we have leaders like you who are actually giving back to the industry, because I mean, you've seen all facets of consulting, industry, entrepreneurship, so you understand what exactly the leaders of tomorrow are looking for. So when you start training them, and like you said, somebody had to get their hands dirty and get their hands into it. So I'm glad that it's you who's picked up the mantle. So when we talk about tech, Subhashish, we're seeing a lot of invisible risk that we're talking about, third-party dependencies, cyber vulnerabilities. How are you training talent to make sure that they are able to conquer the challenge of this?
So actually, it's a very, very simple problem to solve for, because the way one should think about all of the tech disruption, finally, I always say this, we use the word AI very loosely, but if you think of it, there are levels of it. But I think there's a huge opportunity.
So, Subhashish, to end this conversation, fast forward to 5 to 10 years, what do you think the Indian risk ecosystem will look like? Or, let's put it in other ways. What is your ambition that the Indian ecosystem should look like?
Thanks for that question, because I think that's at the heart of the purpose that we have of setting up the institute. We are about 8 years now, so give it another 10, 18 years. In 18 years, I think we would have failed ourselves if we wouldn't have achieved two things. One, we should certainly have at least 50 boards in the country who would start recognizing that having an independent director on the board who is a risk subject matter expert is an imperative. That, to me, would have changed the entire landscape of how future successful young companies will look like. However, what's equally important, I would say rather, additionally, what's equally important is that by that time, I'm absolutely certain India would be the first country that would be able to boast of the fact that we would have the world's only risk-trained set of partners in the risk advisory world across the consulting firms. We've already got our alums who are managers, who are senior AVPs in the industry or directors in places like Morgan Stanley and Marsh and everywhere else. 5-10 years, they're all going to be leaders, RMC members. And that is when you will suddenly find a significant difference, because you would have people who from day zero grew up knowing that good risk management is going to make the company grow faster. And therefore, I've always held that future CEOs will be former CROs, chief risk officers, because nobody other than the CEO needs to understand all risks as much as a CRO does. So 10 years down, I think I'm actually looking forward to seeing a ton of successful risk professionals go on to become business leaders. And that, I think, is going to be a game changer, because when a business leader views the business from a risk lens, they're likely to grow much, much faster and be significantly kind of immunize themselves from externalities which are increasing at a pace and are going to be even bigger threats going forward. So resilience, survival, growth, all of that I think is going to be far, far better.
Great. I mean, what an exciting ambition to have to end the show and the conversation. I think what's clear basis our discussion is that risk no longer will be about frameworks. It will be more about how we can match talent with resilience and innovation. That is what will help us drive the change that we're looking for. Thank you, Subhashish, for an exciting ambition to take on. I think if we manage to achieve it, there'll be marked improvement in the way the companies are run in our country and globally. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I hope you had fun in listening to this exciting conversation. We look forward to bringing more such wonderful conversations in Beyond the Screen and speaking to more such change makers in media and entertainment industry.